I was built going for straight circle martial arts, so this is how to flow naturally when you trap. People learn trapping very loose and very without body, right? And they don't move and they don't understand the basics. So it's okay because it teaches you how to use your hands and how to get the idea of how to do this stuff and how to flow and trap and hook and whatever. But when you're facing people live and they're strong, it's hard to do this. You know, if you're just flipping around, people are gonna annihilate you. So when you do this, you have to learn how to naturally use your body. People always think that trapping is just like Wing Chun. It's not. Every system that's worth its salt has some trapping in it. In karate, there are a lot of forms where you work trapping. That's what it is. You work a lot of these motions. You work a lot of things that allow you to trap and work in and out. Karate is not wrong in what they show sometimes. The secret to karate, which makes it work, is the hips. So when they go into motions, there's a hip motion and there's a hip motion. There's a hip motion, there's a hip motion. And people do this fine in their forms, but when they start doing it with live people, it falls apart. So what you have to understand, and you have to feel this, and you should do this slow at first, is every time I make a motion, do you see that slap down? As I go this way, do you see how my hip loads this way? Because it loads this way, it naturally wants to come to the next motion. So I'm here, and I'm here. There are other times when you trap, say I'm coming with this hip. So even though I go this way, because I'm stepping with this hip loads. If I do this and I turn my hips, how am I going to hit like this? Because my hips are already turned and I've already burned the energy. So motions like this sometimes, you get two motions at the same time. What will happen is you'll get the slap, but because the hip is already traveling, you want the hand to travel at the same time. Because if I go one and then two, it's late. I want to be one and on it. So when you're practicing trapping, you shouldn't sit here static with your hips. It doesn't help you. What you want to learn to do is you have to feel how the hips and the hands work together, and then how they load themselves to throw the next work. So if you watch, hip, hip, hip. Now I'm loaded back on this hip, I'm back to that hip. You have to learn to coordinate the hips with the motions that you're doing. What I find is most people can do that when they're punching or hitting, right? Hip, 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 you know, whatever. But when they start actually adding this stuff into it, they start crossing themselves up and they'll start throwing hips in funny directions, and then they're trying to punch and their body's just all uncoordinated and it's a mess. I know it's not a real fight. I know it's slow, and you know, but I'm telling you, if you start out going fast, you will never learn this. You have to do this slow and progressively pick this up over time. People are very impatient when they train. It's not helpful. So when you do these things, what you want to do very important, is study it. So my energy doesn't want to go down. My energy wants to go in. See the hip? Okay, now I got to feel where my hips are. Where's my hand? If my hand is here, I'm coming with a straight shot. But if they cross like this, well, now I got to come this way. You have to feel what technique fits with your hips and where your hips land after you do your job. So there are sometimes I come in and I drive the hip, and that allows me to come back. There are other times when I bring the hip back because I want to bring him forward. But as this hip goes this way, you see the swing? So now we're into this because I have that motion with the hips. So you have to practice these hip motions all the time. You start off doing this close and slow, and you know, simple things. I mean, just like this. How I learned it originally was you hook on like this, and you just move the hips and get a feel for how do your hips work together with your arms. And then once you get that, you get to feel how do I throw the blows with them and how they move together and how they work. When you get better with this down the road, Then you have to add your feet to them. So it's always in a constant motion so that you're always doing some kind of stepping. Right? So you're not just standing there, because I defy you, I've never seen it. I've never seen a fight in real life where two guys stand here and go like this. They don't. You know, you got to be able to get in, do your work, step, get back out, go back in, go to what you want, and do what you're doing because your feet work. But you have to do it in stages. First stage is feet down, using the hips. Second stage is feet down or feet moving, using the hips and the hands. And you have to always feel how one lines to load the next, to load the next, to load the next, to load the next, to load the next. Every motion should load the next motion. If you throw something this way, and then you throw a second one that way, you've lost all your energy. You've spent it. Don't spend the energy. Play with it. See how it loads, how it flows. Also, one of the big pet peeves of trapping is people are pity pat people. They go like this. You know, they want it. They're more impressed getting 20 shots off and looking really cool in the flow. If I meant it, like, I want that shot to count. There may be only one or two because I don't want to do 10. Drive in and finish them. Don't give them this little pity pat nonsense that doesn't work. Just take your time, feel it, make your shots count. Always practice how to hook things, how to flow with them, how to get your feet into them, and how every time you move, every one of your shots moves properly with your legs and your hips.